Hey there, internet friends. Welcome to another episode of That D Plus Show. Class is in session for the only show from that nerdy site that lets you know what kind of quality to expect right from the name. I'm your host, Trevor Starkey, and each week we dive into a different Disney Plus offering and discuss its history, how it holds up today, and our general impressions. If you like the show, we would love it if you like, subscribe, rate, review, share the podcast with your friends, all that fun stuff. Joining me today, we have Cameron Abbott. How you doing, Cameron?
Hey, what's going on, Trevor?
What is going on? Today, we're going to be talking all about Black Panther Wakanda Forever because it is the newest of the new Marvel things that have made their way to Disney Plus here at the beginning of Black History Month. For more of our Black Panther Wakanda Forever thoughts, you can also catch me and Cameron talking about it on episode 149 of That Nerdy Site show, where we did our spoiler cast on the film back when it was in theaters. And then we also added Logan into the mix to discuss it a little bit more in our Film of the Year conversation, episode 156 of That Nerdy Site show. So we may end up retreading some of the things we've already talked about here, but we'll also have all of the general trappings of that D Plus show in this one. So there we go. That's we originally were going to try and have Logan and Frank on this episode, Frank in particular, to try and bring a new perspective to it because he hadn't seen it in theaters and stuff like that. So this was his first time watching it. But Storms in Austin decided to have a different opinion on things. So we're wishing our best to all of our Austin crew, Frank, Logan, and Jazz, as they brave the storm weather and crappy power companies out there. So a little bit of our history lesson here. Black Panther Wakanda Forever was originally released November 11th, 2022. Other releases of the time, we had Black Adam and the Banshees of Inisherin had come out October 21st. Black Adam was basically the number one movie until Black Panther would come along a couple weeks later. We also had Weird, the Al Yankovic story, came out November 4th, which I still need to watch. Pinocchio, the Guillermo del Toro version, came out November 9th. Then on November 11th there, we had Black Panther Wakanda Forever and The Fabelmans, the latest from Steven Spielberg. A week later, on November 18th, we would get The Menu and Disenchanted, which we've already done a That D Plus show on. Speaking of, we would get Strange World, yet another That D Plus show, and The Glass Onion came out November 23rd there for the Thanksgiving holiday. And then on December 16th, Black Panther Wakanda Forever would finally be dethroned as the number one box office film by Avatar: The Way of Water, which has continued to be the number one film till this recording, 7 weeks in running, I believe, as of this recording. Making over $2 billion for that one. So eventually we'll do probably Avatar movies on that D Plus show since they're now under the Disney Plus banner, but we'll get there when we get there. Black Panther Wakanda Forever has a runtime of 2 hours and 41 minutes in the DC film, or not DC films, MCU films timeline. We had Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness back in May of last year, followed by Thor: Love and Thunder in July, and Black Panther Wakanda Forever in November. Up next, right around the corner as we're recording this, we have Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania coming out February 17th. Then we have Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 in May, and our currently final MCU movie of 2023, The Marvels, coming out July 28th. There's not a holiday/winter slot in the MCU this year, so we'll see if that holds or if anything gets moved around or stuff like that. But that's what's coming up on the MCU movie timeline of things.
Why do you... that's interesting, because they've been pretty consistent like this last year. 2022, they were pretty much putting them out on a regular basis every quarter at least. It's interesting that they're not occupying the next quarter, or the final, or Q4 of this year.
Yeah, I wonder if Disney has other things that are going to be going into that slot. I don't know their slate all that well, but yeah, the MCU does not have a spot picked out there. So you go ahead and look that up while I run through our roll call, our who's who of the film. Our director, of course, returning, Ryan Coogler, who's previously done Fruitvale Station, Creed, and the first Black Panther film. Then we have, for writers, we have once again Ryan Coogler, who also worked on the screenplay and story by credits for this one. having also done Fruitvale Station, Creed, and Black Panther, and the original Black Panther as well. And Joe Robert Cole doing the screenplay. In addition to the original Black Panther, he also was a writer for the films Amber Lake, the series American Crime Story, and All Day and a Night. You found anything news-wise there, Cam?
Not yet, but I'm getting up. Wait, here we go. A couple of things.
Okay.
So in October, we get True Love, which is a sci-fi film from Gareth Edwards and stars John David Washington and Gemma Chan. Ken Watanabe too. Ooh, I have no idea what that is even about. Let's see, Wish, which is the Disney Animation Studios musical.
Yeah,
that's coming in for Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
and
that's going into the Strange World slot that we talked about.
Yeah,
when we did that episode. Yeah.
There's nothing else. That's weird. It's Strange World slot. It was like, they went out to they put the promotional efforts behind Wakanda Forever, and so that was the explanation for why nobody knew what the heck that was. It's weird that there's only a single slot, or I guess 2 slots, but like, what in the world is True Love? Because that sounds like something that's going to end up on Disney Plus.
Yeah, this is the first I'm hearing of that one. I know there's also the next Pixar film is Elemental, I believe.
Yeah, but that's coming out in summer.
Yeah, so I don't
True
know.
Love is, what is this?
We will see. As for our starring, we have Letitia Wright returning as Shuri. She's been playing Shuri since 2018. She's also in Ready Player One, Sing 2, and Death on the Nile. Lupita Nyong'o playing Nakia, having been in 12 Years a Slave. She's been Maz Kanata in Star Wars, starting with the sequel trilogy. And she's been Nakia since Black Panther 2018, and she was in Us. You had a look like you wanted to jump in with something there, Cam.
Yes, it looks like, now I could be way off base based off of the casting, but when I did a Google search of True Love Disney, what came up was One True Love, the hit single from Turning Red by, what is the
Four Town.
Four Town, yeah. Four Town sings a song called One True Love. So I'm not saying that's what it is, but since there's nothing else promotional for a movie that's coming out this year at the end.
I mean, but we also haven't seen anything for The Marvels yet, and that comes out well sooner. So
that's fair. That's fair.
I'm not surprised that we don't have anything for a late in the year movie.
Also, there's the last Harrison Ford Indiana Jones is coming out this year, and we've had
we've had a trailer for it.
A trailer, yeah. So I guess it's wide open. I guess what else? I can't even imagine what else could be coming out that Disney would not be putting something big out, unless they had something big prior to any announcements, and then it got pushed back. So now they just have this gaping hole in their schedule.
Yeah, it's possible. I didn't go back and look and see what other what is the MCU movie following the Marvels there that may. Oh, I think it's the next Captain America. I think is the next one on the.
Oh, was that? Do you think that might have been originally when they were doing their scheduling slate? That might have been in the winter slot, and then it got pushed back.
Maybe. I don't know. Because Captain America: New World Order is slated for May of 2024, and then the Thunderbolts. It might have been that Blade was going to go in there, but there's been so much stuff with Blade that's
true.
Been.
That is very
maybe
true.
That got delayed.
Yeah, that's entirely possible.
Yeah. Anyway, continuing on with our cast, we have Denai Guerrera as Okoye. She's been Michonne in The Walking Dead, as well as, of course, Okoye since Black Panther in 2018. Winston Duke back as M'Baku, having been in projects like Person of Interest, and then he's been M'Baku since Black Panther in 2018. So he was also in Us with Lupita Nyong'o. Angela Bassett here, returning in a now Oscar-nominated role for her portrayal here of Queen Ramonda, the first for an MCU performance. She has credits going all the way back to 1985, including Boys in the Hood, Malcolm X, What's Love Got to Do with It, Waiting to Exhale, Contact, How Stella Got Her Groove Back, a season or two of ER, I believe, She was in the Green Lantern film, the ill-fated Green Lantern film, and she's been Queen Ramonda since Black Panther in 2018, and she was also Regala in Horizon Forbidden West, if you forgot that last year. We have Tenoch Huerta as Namor or Namor with an introducing credit, but he has also been in a number of major Spanish language projects dating all the way back to 2006. Some of his credits include Spectre, which I pulled in here just because, of course, Logan is our James Bond fanatic. He is credited as Mexican Man in Lift. He's also in Narcos Mexico and The Forever Purge. We have the return of Martin Freeman's character, Everett Ross. He's, of course, been Tim in the original UK The Office. He was in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which is probably the first thing I ever saw him in. He was, of course, Bilbo in the Hobbit movies, Watson in Sherlock, and he has been Everett Ross since Captain America Civil War in 2016. And lastly, Dominic Thorne as Riri Williams. She's in If Beale Street Could Talk, Judas and the Black Messiah, and she will be kind of the center point of the upcoming Ironheart Disney Plus series. Some trivia for you. Tenoch Huerta, who plays the ruler of an underwater kingdom, didn't know how to swim. When Ryan Coogler offered him the role and asked about his swimming skills, Huerta simply replied, "I've never drowned before." He took swimming lessons afterwards in preparation for the role. Daniel Kaluuya was set to return as W'Kabi, but dropped out due to scheduling conflicts with the film Nope. Namor the Submariner was Marvel's very first superhero alongside the Angel and the original Human Torch. Writer-artist Bill Everett, later co-created Daredevil, was a fan of anything nautical and sea-related, and he created Namor as the water-based opposite to the Torch. Samuel Taylor Coleridge's 1798 poem, The Rime of the Ancient Mariner, was an influence on the character, and the name Namor was conceived by writing Roman backwards. He first appeared in the unpublished motion pictures Funnies Weekly #1, April 1939, before making his official debut in Marvel Comics #1, October 1939. First publication by Marvel's predecessor, Timely Comics.
I will say, so a lot of fun notes here about Namor. So Namor, so of course, when we're referring to the Human Torch as his opposite, we're not referring to Johnny Storm, we're referring to the original Human Torch, which was a World War II themed superhero. A la, like, this would also be part of the inspiration point for Captain America, along with a lot of other kind of like war-based themed superheroes. So
you actually believe the original Human Torch in android form has a cameo in Iron Man 2, I believe. It's either Iron Man 2 or it was one of the Captain Americas. It's basically like Howard Stark is out there presenting stuff. So I think it's Iron Man 2 is out there presenting stuff on his show floor or whatever. And one of the other things at the expo is the Human Torch.
Yeah. Or maybe that is in Captain America 1 in as one of the things at the World Fair that they're at.
Yeah,
I think that might be it.
That probably is, because I'm remembering that it was not Sebastian Stan. I mean, obviously he's in there.
Chris Evans?
No, the guy who played young Howard in Captain America.
Oh yes,
the first Avenger, whose name escapes me.
He's the hubby from
Mamma Mia.
Mamma Mia.
Yeah. Yep.
That's all we need to remember.
There you go.
By.
Yeah.
No. So you have that. Oh gosh, what else? Yeah. So the Submariner, Namor, the Submariner name got dropped like back in like the 80s or 90s, as like the thing that was used to describe him, because like they hadn't. I don't think he's headlined a comic series on his own in a very long time. At least in the, like, I've not been keeping up with comics for like the last, I'd say, decade. So take that with a grain of salt. Actually longer. I haven't been keeping up with comics as much.
Mm-hmm. Dominic Cooper was the guy's name.
Dominic Cooper, yeah.
Yeah. And so, yeah, it was the original Captain America.
Yeah. So you have that. What else was, oh yeah. So, he's been very prevalent as he's also the quote unquote first mutant.
Mm-hmm.
In that he was described as a mutant in his introduction back in the 30s. And so he is technically the first mutant. It is a very historic character.
I'll just jump in there. One of the trivia things here in IMDb that I didn't include, but since you brought it up, This is now the first film in the MCU to use the term mutant. Namor refers to himself as such, and some appearances in comics refer to him as the world's first mutant. Parentheses, though this point is highly disputed among comic book readers.
Yeah. It's interesting. So Namor has I'll by the way, I will drop Namor and Namor both times because it's in the film it's definitely Namor.
In the film he says it Namor, everybody else still says
it's
it
Namor, yeah.
So they like that would be like you introducing yourself as Cameron and me being like, "Okay, Cameron." And just like completely disregarding whatever you've just told me.
I think it'd be more like when I tell people, well, my name's Cameron, and they say, oh, okay, Cameron. Is kind of like how I would. But that being said, the important thing is you're right. Yeah, 100%. It is like that. So yeah, Namor is like I love. Like I've loved him in the past. He is basically the world's biggest dick, which is something to say in the Marvel like comic book universe. He is like he is speciest. He's a real piece of work. But he's also incredibly powerful and like a king and all sorts of other stuff. So they capture him pretty well in this movie. But the biggest thing that I can say that I remember from him is that he was cool and hanging out with a lot of the mutants, not in the Savage Land or whatever, or Sokoa or Skoa, whatever it's called technically, but I was not following comics when they like repopulated that area and were doing those things. But he was with them when they were on Alcatraz Island as like an independent mutant state. He was one of their leaders there. And he was like definitely like two-timing it with Emma Frost, who was like will they won't they with Scott Summers for a while. So yeah. He is a big. Oh, also he was Sue Storm's love interest before she finally ended up with Reed Richards.
Mm-hmm.
That was a big thing too. He's usually been like the really awesome, cool potential love interest that doesn't end up getting picked. That tends to be his fate. But yeah, so
he's the James Marsden of the
Marvel
universe.
That is accurate. That is accurate. Although James Marsden in his own way is also the James Marsden.
Indeed.
Although no, because Scott Summers wins in the end. No, wait, no, he doesn't. I mean, it's.
In the X-Men movie he does, but then he also dies.
Yeah. He wins until like he loses really bad.
Yeah. He wins until winning costs him his life.
Yeah, basically.
Anyway, next bit of trivia there. This is the live-action debut of Namor the Submariner. There had been numerous attempts to adapt the character to film and television, all of which ultimately stalled. Marvel Comics founder Martin Goodman began developing a live-action Namor TV series in the 1950s with Richard Egan eyed to star, but nothing came of it. Another Namor series was planned in the 1970s, but it was dropped due to similarities with Man from Atlantis, 1977, which ironically was inspired by Namor. A Namor film was first announced in 1997 and then spent the next 2 decades in development hell, with numerous writers and directors attached over the years. Universal, however, has owned Namor's film rights since 2002, which means, like the Hulk, he can only appear as a supporting character in Marvel Studios projects, not in a standalone film or series. So yeah, he's got the same kind of Incredible Hulk vibes. We have a lot of translation and subtitle action in this film. Wakandan is specifically translated in yellow subtitles, Talokanan in blue, and French and Spanish are in white. This comes in handy when Nakia approaches a woman in Mexico and speaks Spanish to her and then switches to Talokanan. The text turns blue to prove she knows about the Talokans. And then lastly, because I don't think this came out until after we had done our original spoiler cast and stuff, but Ryan Coogler has spoken out about some of the original plans prior to Chadwick Boseman's passing. The original Black Panther 2 plans, quote, in the script, T'Challa was a dad who'd had this forced 5-year absence from his son's life, Coogler told The Times, of course, from the blip. Quote, the first scene was an animated sequence. You hear Nakia talking to Toussaint, his child that is revealed in the film. She says, tell me what you know about your father. And you realize that he doesn't know his dad was the Black Panther. He's never met him. And Nakia is remarried to a Haitian dude. Then we cut to reality, and it's the night that everybody comes back from the blip. You see T'Challa meet his kid for the first time. The script would have then flashed forward 3 years to trail T'Challa as he co-parents his now 8-year-old son. Namor, the villain played by Tenoch Huerta, would still have been the film's primary antagonist, but Coogler added that he and CIA director Valentina Allegra de Fontaine, aka Julia Louis-Dreyfus's character, would have had slightly different roles in the story. So, yeah, a still a story about kind of like dealing with loss and stuff to a degree, because obviously he lost some key moments there in his son's childhood, having disappeared. But yeah, obviously the real world came in and changed things. So Cameron, and I'll also jump in here and basically indicate that I started to kind of rewatch the film this week, but just haven't had a lot of time. So I'm speaking mostly from like memory of originally seeing it in the film or in theaters, and I believe Cameron's doing the same. So we didn't like hop in and get like a fresh rewatch. But Cameron, what did you think about Black Panther: Wakanda Forever for our Disney Plus, that D Plus show audience?
I think every time I think back to this movie, I think better of it. And I don't think it's just because, like, oh, in my mind, it's better. I think it's just that I've had time to process and appreciate the individual parts of this film. This film is a film about loss and mourning. It's also a very, like international political drama that has to do with, like, some, like, the idea of, like, we got to see Wakanda, people being like, yeah, Wakanda exists. Like, it's like this thing, and it's been the butt of some, not the butt, but like the subject matter around some jokes. In She-Hulk, what's his name said, I did a semester abroad in Wakanda. And does the Wakanda Forever, it's like, you shouldn't do that, rich white man. Mm-hmm. There's a lot about it that I think individually and like piece by piece, this movie still works extremely well. I understand the criticisms around it, but I also just don't think like this movie has to carry and do so much, and it accomplishes it in a really spectacular way. But its triumph is almost muffled out by its challenge in a way. Mm-hmm. I think it also does a little bit of a disservice to the incredible and impeccable performances from its main cast. These are supporting characters that were thrust deeply into the limelight. And I think that some of that shows that transition of taking these side characters and making them the main characters. Or sorry, not side characters, supporting characters and making them main characters is a big ask. I think that they were very, very smart about not like bringing Everett Ross into a more prominent role. I think that the role he fills is perfect, exactly what we need. And also kind of sets up some Thunderboltsy stuff as far as like, we now know who is the person who's been recruiting these kind of like alternative heroes, a la not Captain, like wannabe cosplayer Captain America. So like we have that. Like we now know, okay, it's CIA. We now know it's Thunderbolts. Like that's the kind of surrounding thing around it. And I really appreciated the loyalty of the personal relationship that Ross had with Shuri, because he and Shuri really bonded in the first film after she's literally saved his life and like let him walk again. He has a massive debt, not just in like the matter of fact nature of what he owes the Wakandans, but also just he himself is in mourning, obviously. Mm-hmm. He still mourns T'Challa's death. And it is a movie about people dealing with that kind of heavy loss, at the same time dealing with all the other things going on. Also, massive shout out to them not making the American suit, like the American operatives, the bad guys. Like the twist right at the beginning of the film where it turns out it was the French. Mm-hmm. Did not see that coming. I was like, oh yeah, American. Okay, yeah, it's Americans. It's us, the imperialists. Gotcha. Uh-huh. And it's like, haha, we tricked you. It was the old imperialists, not the new imperialists.
I mean, we're still not good guys.
Oh, not at all.
Richard Schiff is out there definitely wanting to get Wakanda's vibranium.
Oh, 100%.
I mean, one of the scenes I did catch in my rewatch so far is Julie Louis-Dreyfus's character and Everett Ross in there opposite Richard Schiff, and Richard Schiff's basically like we we think the Wakandans did this and are attacking our, our citizens and stuff like that. We want,
Mhm.
we want to try and destabilize their government. Like that's how we want to proceed with this. So like Americans still aren't great.
No, 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 we're still the bad guys.
Yeah.
It's okay. I wasn't giving us too much credit, Trevor. It's okay. We're definitely still the baddies.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it's such a fantastic film that does so much with what it has. But I think, like I said earlier, it's the triumph in the face of its challenge. While it is triumphant, is oftentimes I think and will continue to be overshadowed by its challenge. And it's done more than we could possibly like as a film. It does more than we could possibly ask from it. And it's like it is partially a shame that it came out in a year that is just absolutely stacked with films that are just absolute standouts. But in the end, I still think that it's an absolutely fantastic film.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you said. I think one of the big things that obviously the movie is nothing but having to kind of overcome this drastic challenge of losing their lead to very tragic circumstances. And one of the things that I think was a very smart decision on the behalf of the team is not thrusting one singular person into kind of that limelight. Obviously, Shuri ends up taking on the mantle, but they don't put the entire movie on her shoulders. And I think that's to the movie's benefit because I don't know that Letitia Wright is there to manage it. I mean, we've talked in either in our spoiler cast or in our film of the year conversation, we talked about the idea that she's largely playing the note of rage for the whole film. She's not really, she's grieving in a very specific way. So we're not getting to see a bunch of different like layers to her compared to Queen Ramonda, Angela Bassett's character, which is, I think, well worthy of the Academy Award nomination that she has received and some of the awards that she's earned in the role. Because, I mean, especially watching the first half of the movie that I have rewatched, like every time she's on screen, there is a power to her and there is a gravitas and a sense of loss and rage and mourning and all of the, like, it is a much broader spectrum of emotions than Shuri's just I want to burn the world kind of vibe that she exhibits. And whether it is playing the political game of talking to the US and the French at the UN knockoff or whatever, and basically saying like, we are mourning, but we will not stand by idly and let you try and steal our resources. Or when like the incredibly powerful scene after Shuri gets taken, where she basically is firing Okoye and screams. I mean, that the line that was like that incredibly emotional line from the trailer of like I am the queen of the most powerful nation in the world, and I have lost everyone. Is devastating. So I think like everything she's doing in the film really helps ease the load that gets put on Shuri for the first half of the film, and then once we kind of turn into that third act, she can kind of like attain the mantle of the Black Panther and kind of coast on through the action sequences at the end, and then finally have her like moment of catharsis and release on the beach in a very powerful moment. But I think if I would have liked to have seen just more, especially knowing that she's going to be kind of the Black Panther moving forward and stuff like that. I would have liked to have seen more different like shades of variety from her than we get here. But at the same time, like I think they do a great job introducing Namor and Tenoch, as we've touched on in a lot of our conversations. Is Black Panther does a really good job of setting up their villains. Like he's up there in terms of like you understand why he is the way he is and why he holds a grudge the way he does, in the same way we did with Killmonger. So I think he's a wonderful and it's there was one moment I was thinking about as I watched like on my lunch break today. He's going through telling his heartbreaking backstory to Shuri, and Shuri's like, I want to like I want to come see your people. I want to, and he goes through this whole thing of like, well, you die of hypothermia and the weight would crush you and all this stuff, or you can wear a suit. We've got those. And he's like so charming in his little turn on that that I forgot the first time I watched it, and for a second there, this time around, I'm like, oh, those are the suits that he basically like ripped out of, he killed the divers in their first scene in the movie. It's just cleared a body out of there. It's okay. You can use it now. Wild stuff. But even to that, like his introduction scene is such a good like horror villain introduction scene. All the stuff on the boat with Lake Bell's character does a great job of kind of like setting up the Talokan threat, and Namor's like, especially when you think they got out, they made it. They like these last two escaped. They're on the helicopter. They're darting away, and then Namor comes up with his flying heels and just chucks a helicopter into the ocean.
The fact that they made Namor's winged feet menacing speaks to the scene, the way that it's built, the way that it ramps up, and the way that it's delivered. Fantastic.
Yeah. I like, especially where I'm at in the rewatch, like I do miss Winston Duke's role in this film. Like when we do get him, he throws in great one-liners, and M'Baku is a fun character, and I imagine would have maybe been more of an antagonist kind of role in the original version had he not had to kind of also then fill the role of the male elder statesman of Wakanda now, in the absence of a T'Challa, and kind of serve that like mentor role to Shuri. And I'm very excited to see like where, because this film ends up with him basically like challenging for the role of Black Panther or whatever. Like we don't really know what that all means, but it's a fun like tease for a potential future for that character. I think, as I said in a lot of our other conversations about it, the weakest elements of this film for me are the like MCUification of things, the setting up of Riri Williams because we're going to have her in Ironheart, the linking of Everett and Allegra de Fontaine as a ex like divorced couple and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, okay, I don't. Like it feels like a shoehorned way to get that character in there and continue setting her up. And I think I mentioned this in one of our conversations. It's also like in all of her little appearances, I haven't been given a reason to care about her yet. In the same way that like Nick Fury's second appearance in Iron Man 2, he has like a sit down conversation with Tony Stark and kind of lays out his whole deal. And we haven't gotten that. Like, like it's always nice seeing Julia Louis-Dreyfus pop up, but I also just don't know what her whole deal is. So, I hope they're able to stop like doing place setting and start actually paying off some of these beats. But yeah, I think those are kind of my general overall thoughts. Any favorite moments or scenes you want to give some love to?
I mean, yeah, like half this movie counts as that. Anything with Namor is just it's like you said, he's up there with Killmonger. Like when he's on camera, when you are seeing Namor, it is about him in that moment. And I think that is possibly like it sounds weird to say this, but for me to say that it might just be like the greatest weakness of the Black Panther films, that the villains are just that much, like that level of incredible originality that Ryan Coogler is able to like inject into these villains to make them like so detailed and just so vivid.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost unfair to characters that have to kind of like work within a quote unquote established canon.
Mm-hmm. It's, I mean, like one of the things I always remember with the first Black Panther was everybody was ranting and raving about how great Michael B. Jordan's performance is. But I think Chadwick Boseman's performance in there is equally as strong.
Mm-hmm.
It is just so much more of a subdued performance because that's the character. That's the role he's playing. He is the statesman. He doesn't get the big flashy moments, but he goes on a significant arc over the course of
He
that
does.
film.
His confrontation with the patriarchs of his family is brilliant. I love it. It's one of my favorite one of my favorite scenes in all of Marvel cinema is that scene where, because honestly, like, even though it's not even close to a 3-to-3 comparison, that forced reconciliation with the sins of the past, of the inaction of the past, it's something that, like, as you learn, like, as you get older and you learn about the people in your history, in your family, in your life, and your heritage, you have to make, like, reconciliations, especially if you look like Trevor and me. You have to confront things like the concept and existence of things like the patriarchy, systemic racism. And these are things where you, like, having that opportunity for that level of catharsis is unattainable for anybody but T'Challa in fiction. And but that confrontation and not shying away from it the way his father did. His father pushed that away. His father ignored this lost child that was his brother's son. He ignored the plight of people around the world. And for the end of Black Panther to be a Wakanda is a, like, revealing the true nature of Wakanda and revealing that it will be for the benefit of the world, taking its rightful place as the most powerful nation in the world, is a very powerful moment and message. And seeing the weakness of a country when it's lost its, singular leader. And I actually want to give a massive shout out to Shuri's character being played so rage filled, because it's different for a mother who is older, who has, like, lost her husband, who has now lost a son, than a sister or a daughter who has just keeps losing things and hasn't had the years of time to gain the wisdom to see beyond rage in moments. And I think that speaks to their dichotomy and why I like their dichotomy a lot in this movie. And so any scene where the two of them share, between Shuri and the Queen, are just really, really incredible moments of a mother knowing that, like, she knows Shuri will be able to move past this and become really the person she's meant to be. And I love, and it shows, because after losing her, all Shuri does is unleash this rage that's been held in check, and it leads to her in her conflict with Namor. And the resolution to that is, like, I had tears in my eyes. I was crying. Like, she's literally, like, engaged so much in rage, and you're like, oh yeah, she's winning the fight. But it's like, but she's losing her fight. She's winning the fight against Namor, but she's losing, but her people are dying.
Mm-hmm.
She's losing her war. She's losing her internal fight. There's a reason why, narratively speaking alone, of course, the reality of the real world being impacted in this as well, but narratively, why Killmonger shows up and not her mother, her brother, her father, anybody else. Why is this the guy that shows up? And it's because she's at war with herself, and that rage and that conflict and that strife called to him, and he came to validate it. And so, like, her then having her quick turnaround, and I wish they had like a much longer scene, like T'Challa gets with the patriarchy, or with the Wakandan patriarchs in the first film, his return to it and his accusations against them.
I mean, really, it's obviously there are a lot of Panthers in that scene or whatever, but it's only his father that he sees and is, like, really confronting.
Oh yeah, I get. Well, I mean, yeah, okay, yes, you're right.
It's his father embodying the patriarchy, but yes. Yeah, it's still a very personal.
Oh, it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I did not want to, like, state that it was not, like, a deeply personal intimacy between him and his father in those moments either.
Yeah.
Yes, but not getting like a longer moment. You just get, like, that one. I mean, granted, that's all you need for an already pretty long film, admittedly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But also, it's like, man, I could have gotten some more Angela Bassett. Actually, I could have gotten more of her, and her character, and, like, there's just so much about the entire setup and build and payoff of Wakanda Forever that I think works in hindsight and looking back at it. My first time through, I'm excited to go through it again and watch it again. Because my first time through, I think, was very much of a like shock experience. Like there was a lot of things, new information being thrown at me. I still like the exes situation between Louis Dreyfus and Martin Freeman. Yeah, I still like that. I know I'm in the minority on that. A lot of people are like, I did not need this. It's like, I love it. It gives context to like why they have such a like bantery, shitty relationship. Because they used to be married to each other.
And especially when you like learn that she planted the kimono beads. Is that the right word? In the first place, like she knew that he would take that bait. And then just kind of like, so it also on a rewatch, like all of her like little jabs and digs off, to keep him off center, or anytime like he thinks he's got a, one up on her, she's already 2 steps ahead. I think that's a fun little element of their relationship, even if I don't necessarily even if I didn't need the relationship. I mean, again, both of them are great performers, so of course they're going to work wonders with it.
Also, Everett Ross is officially a wanted man and is hiding out in Wakanda, a la Winter Soldier.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I wonder if we're going to get in the next big crossover film, we're going to see Martin Freeman working out with and like lifting heavy bags of fertilizer.
We'll have to wait and see.
And then Martin Freeman will clean up for his boyfriend. I mean, his best friend.
Sure. Yep. I'm trying to think what other there's also the scene where we get reintroduced to Nakia because Queen Ramonda goes to Haiti to see her and basically enlist her into it. And on a second viewing, once you know that the child is there, and she knows about the child because there is the thing when they're mourning the thing right before Namor shows up, she's like, I want to tell you something about your brother.
Oh.
And Nakia at the end of the movie says, yes, she knew about him.
Oh, so that was where she was. That makes sense why they were so we can't be around anybody. Because they're keeping it tops. That makes so much sense. That makes so much sense. That's so good.
So yeah, there's
great.
There's nice little moments like that.
That's
of
great.
Like her basically getting to see her grandson one more time before obviously she doesn't know she's going to die in a horrible fight. Speaking of that though, I do want to shout out I think especially stuff like the water bombs leads to some really cool and fun, interesting fight choreography stuff.
Yes.
I think the initial sequence, even if I don't like the Riri Williams aspects of the film as much, I think the one of the first action set pieces of kind of the escape and driving through Boston and stuff like that, leading to the bridge fight are cool. I think there's a lot of fun for Okoye there, having to like commandeer and take control of the car. So I think there's a lot of great stuff there. And then she goes in and like kicks butt of the Talokans, and then they show how basically invincible they are and that they are a threat. So yeah, there's
the absolute bullshit of just how invincible they are.
Yeah. And to their credit, like the Dora Milaje have never had to fight enemies with like vibranium tech before. I mean, apart from like the little civil war that we had at the end of Black Panther 1, like it is a largely new enemy because of that, and a new formidable foe.
Well, so new. Like the fact that the Talokan were able to hide their entire presence from the world in isolation, but at the same time have this entirely like awesome, brilliant, like super freaking cool. Like going to see Talokan for the first time is way better than any Atlantis I've seen in any film. Like it's so cool. Granted, like for people out there, yes, no, I still have not seen Aquaman.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. It could be cool. I don't know. But I can't imagine that it's as cool as this like really awesome, still very much Aztec vibe, and architecture and culture being found, like this Mesoamerican culture being found and being isolated and alone in a way that like really wowed me. Not on the same level as Wakanda wowed me in Black Panther, but still like on a similar note. I really, really enjoyed that.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, we are also stuck seeing half of it through the suit
Yeah.
that Shuri had on, so that might have taken away from it. But
Yeah. There
also the massive sea serpent throne he has is just the freaking coolest, dude.
Yeah, the megalodon skull.
Oh, so cool.
Yeah. One thing I did on the rewatch, Shuri has a line like the mother comes in as asking about the Shuri's AI, voiced by Trevor Noah, reprising his role as well, and she says like AI aren't going to take over the world, mother. It's okay, and I was like. I wonder how Wakanda dealt with the whole Age of Ultron stuff. Like, what was happening in Wakanda during that? Like, did they somehow get to avoid it all? How?
Well,
If so, how?
well,
Like,
they were dealing with the fallout of the theft of vibranium by Claw,
yeah,
because Claw was a major minor plot point.
Yeah.
Vibranium, him getting vibranium and having the secret of this like secret nation.
yeah,
Like, where did you get it? Where'd you get all this vibranium? Oh, it's a trade secret, or whatever he says in the movie,
yeah,
because they hadn't confirmed Wakanda yet. But that entire aspect of it, I really, really liked.
yeah. But it led me to think like,
Oh yeah, so
I
think
mean,
they,
as
yeah.
technologically advanced as Wakanda is, did they somehow have like crazy super firewalls that Ultron wasn't able to breach, or was Ultron also, attacking Wakanda while all that other stuff was going on?
I think the probability is that Ultron, without knowing, like, unless he would have picked up on like the little secret things that are about Wakanda out in the world that are large, because Wakanda at that time was still largely disconnected.
I mean, no, I'm pretty sure Claw like says it's from Wakanda. So Ultron's entire like artifice at that point is from Wakanda. So
yeah, but also if he did a Google search of Wakanda at that time, he would have just found out, yeah, they got some vibranium there and some deposits, but it's not, there was enough obscure, not obscure,
to the public, sure, but I also imagine like as a thing that can just be connected to all of the internet and stuff like that. I have a feeling he would be able to be like, actually, this Wakanda place seems like it's got way more power running through it than the internet tells me it should, or something like that.
Yeah, but running through it, how? Like, how would he know unless, because at that point, Wakanda's completely insular. They're not outwards connected to everything else, at least not in a way that might be able to be found publicly.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm thinking like some kind of satellite connection or something like that, but whatever. It was just a random tangent that I thought of in this rewatch.
That's a good tangent, though. That was a great tangent. I like that.
I mean, in the same way that like this is obviously our first time meeting the Telecon people, and I talked about this of like, how did they react to the blip? Like when half of their people just disappeared, did Namor kind of like pop up and be like, what the hell's going on up here, guys? What did you do? Yeah. And then they suddenly all come back 5 years later. Yeah. Just weird things that we end up kind of encountering because of this very connected MC universe. But yeah. Trying to think any other favorite moments or beats. Yeah, I mean, everything Nakia does, I think, like Lupita Nyong'o just continues to be great in everything she is. And similar to my lamenting earlier, I think like the little bits of M'Baku that we do get in the fights later on, and like when he's so cocky and then immediately gets his butt kicked too, but that doesn't stop him or whatever. He's a joy, and yeah, shout out to that. All right. If you don't have anything else, we can probably move on to the report card where we grade from A+ to F. What grade do you want to give Black Panther Wakanda Forever, Cameron?
Honestly, I think it's great. I think that it does have like some rough spots. I'm gonna be giving it an A-.
A-, fair. Yeah, for me it's a B probably, but it is also a B with a like very an understanding B of like, I know this isn't the movie you guys wanted to make. Obviously, it was struck by significant personal tragedy, and I can't imagine what being on that set was like, and the like emotional both turmoil and catharsis that you had of celebrating this character and kind of creating this film and having to create it without him. Could not have been an easy time. But at least they got to do it together. So yeah. Extra credit, other suggestions if you like this. Weirdly, Ant-Man is the first thing listed. I'm like, that's the weird choice, unless they're like basically trying to set it up of like, hey, we know Quantumania is the next MCU thing, so go remind yourself who Ant-Man was. Then you have the original Black Panther film, then Captain America Civil War, of course, where Black Panther was introduced, Avengers Infinity War, Avengers Endgame, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, What If, which did feature Chadwick Boseman's final performances in the role. And then lastly, the Marvel Studios Legends series, which is basically like a bunch of little shorts like focusing on and introducing characters. In particular, episodes 22 through 24 were released in advance of Black Panther Wakanda Forever, which focus on, respectively, King T'Challa, Princess Shuri, and the Dora Milaje. Extracurriculars. You watch anything else on Disney Plus recently there, Cam?
No.
Nope, nothing else. So I sat down last night and caught up on the National Treasure Edge of History series, which has one episode to go at this point. And I will say, went in some directions I was not expecting it to go in these last couple episodes. So it wraps up next week. I'm going to check in with Frank, and if he's able to basically get caught up, that may be our topic for next week's show. Will be our full season recap of Edge of History, but who knows? And yeah, I don't think I watched anything else because I have not caught up on Bad Batch. Obviously, the most of the other stuff we've been watching have been like The Last of Us and stuff like that. So, shout out to all that other good stuff that's on our streaming services. But yeah, that is going to do it for this week's episode of That D Plus Show. Thank you, Cam, for joining me to talk about Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. You can follow Cameron at Rev Cabot, 2 B's and 2 T's. Anything you want to give a shout out to there, Cam?
Yeah, I want to give a massive shout out to our Let's Play series. Right now, Trevor is playing through Elden Ring. I'm happy to be playing through some of it with him.
All of it so far, yeah. Apart from that first Let's Play I did.
Yeah.
Where I did not kill any bosses or anything like that. I just managed to not die a lot in a first hour and a half or so.
Which is the first step to doing better at Elden Ring.
True. And the thing was, it was also the second time playing, or second time recording that Let's Play. The first time I did die a lot in that first hour and a half and rage quit and walked away until I built a better character for myself.
There you go.
Yeah. Yes, you can follow me at Trevor J. Starkey, and I will echo those Elden Ring shoutouts as Cameron got to experience me rage quitting IRL when my first attempt at editing the most recent episode got erased because Adobe Premiere sometimes sucks. I threw headsets across the room and we watched my Astro headset break into a bunch of pieces, but fortunately it's all good. They're all magnetized. They all went back together fine. But yes, we're still going through Elden Ring. I have not rage quit the game yet. So you can go catch those. And you can also catch on our That Nerdy Site show. We finally were able to sit down with Frank earlier this week and did our Game of the Year conversation. So shout out to among the three of us, because Logan did not join us this year. We had so little crossover in our top 10 lists. We ended up talking about 25 games out of a possible 30, and that's not counting like the extra ones we talked about in honorable mentions and stuff like that. So if you are interested in our 2022 Game of the Year thoughts, you can go catch that episode as well. So yeah, you follow all of the latest from us, including the eventual write-ups that we're going to do for any of our Game of the Year, Movie of the Year, Blank of the Year stuff over at That Nerdy Site, or go to thatnerdysite.com for all the latest. Once again, if you liked what you heard, please remember to like, subscribe, rate, review, share the podcast with your friends, ring notification bells, all that fun stuff. Thank you for joining us. As always, stay nerdy, be good to each other, and class dismissed.